Hello everyone and welcome back to the Motorgraph World channel. My name is Mari and today I'm here with the Genesis Electrified G80 model. We're here for a test drive, but let's see how it looks out on the road and how it drives as well. There's not much of a difference between the petrol versions as well as the diesel version with the electrified version. The biggest differences in terms of design is the grille, because this grille is completely all in plastic. You also have the charging port that opens up in the front part for the Genesis. This also is the same for some of the other lineups on the Genesis model. You also have the blue license plate, which also notes the fact that it's an EV, just for the Korean markets. And you also have for the headlights, the double lights that also extend to the side, which extends to the side double lights as well. So overall, considering that it's one of the competitors or some of the options that you might consider when you think of buying a Mercedes EQE, I believe that it's a great contender to the EQE. What do you guys think? It has a very streamlined look on the profile, and even with the face, it has a prominent look. So for that kind of presence, I think that the G80 is worth your bucks and worth your investment. Tell us what you think down below on our comment line. So this electrified G80 has a combined range of 427 kilometers for Korean standards. And as our driver was driving over, we had around 380, and it's in the middle of winter and it's pretty cold, and so it has pretty good range. However, I would like to point out that the charging port is completely whack, considering that you will pay a considerable amount of bucks or Korean won for the G80. I have no idea why you would make a charging port so flimsy out of plastic. And even with the charging port, this kind of just is I have nothing to say. I mean, I'm sure that it was supposed to be connected to something, but you know, our tester car kind of came detached with the charging port. If this completely and if you want to have a fast charging, then you actually have to take out both of these. And then you really do need both of the caps. This is the Matira Blue, or it's a very peculiar type of color. I think that it's one of those colors that Genesis is experimenting with. And I must say that some of their unique colors are quite nice looking on the cars. But now, looking at the side profile, one of the best features that I personally love about Genesis models is the side profile. The side profile is extremely sophisticated and sleek, and I love that they don't have any type of extreme character lines, and it's just very elegant and beautiful. And now with the tires and the wheels, the front you have the 245 45 19-inch, and then at the back you have the 275 40 19-inch, so that you see the dynamic with these wheels as well as the tires. And now if you look at the back with the trunk, you have the same kind of aesthetic with the two dual lights as you see from the front. That same aesthetic continues on at the back. It has this kind of coupe line that flows from the back. It's a sporty end to it. So mind you, the trunk isn't as spacious as you may have expected. Let's do our Mari trunk test. A slight dip after you get in. And as you can see, the opening itself is not so wide. It's quite narrow, in fact. For those of you who really love your golfing and those who like to pack in your golf bags, I'm expecting that you will be able to pack in one golf bag. You have this huge lump inside. Because of the stacking of the batteries, you have to compromise a little bit with the trunk space. However, one thing, if you do like skiing, there is a ski through in the middle, so that you don't have to compromise. And you do have a lower compartment inside the trunk. It's not that huge. If you take this out, the styrofoam, then you do see some equipment, so you might not want to touch that. You might have a little bit more space to add in a couple of tools and some smaller luggage, but not that much more space. And as you may expect with some other EVs, you do have a frunk, a very small one in the front part of the bonnet. Inside, not that much has changed. There are some aspects of the interior that have changed because it is an EV. The first thing, the seat position has been raised by 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter because of the battery layout. Other than that, you do have the basic interior with the displays as well as the overall center console that are basically the same with the G80. As for the steering wheel, right now you have the two-tone interior, and the steering wheel is quite light and it's very soft. As for the line of sight, a very clean line of sight. And even for a sedan, you do have quite that height that you have. The Genesis is aiming for more premiumness, especially with their aesthetics, their interior, as well as their overall usage of materials. So inside, they have taken to using more premium materials. The materials that they've used on the door trim, they have a mixture of different materials. For the top part here, it seems like it's polyurethane. Then leather or pleather on the door trim here, and more leather here. And then a combination of plastic. And in the center part, you do have this nice leather trim, which gives it a softer and more luxurious feel to it. As for the controls, you do have a mixture of buttons that actually physically you have to push, as well as the touch types. For the seats, you do have the cooling as well as the heating in 3 different levels, and having the knobs of, rotating and turning these, I think that it gives it a classic touch, don't you? And if you look on the touch control panel, then you have this EV. If you're the only person inside the car and you only need to heat up the driver's seat, then you can have that control on and the car will be able to save up energy. And again, if you have the heat button, this is for the batteries on a cold day in order to keep the battery warm and to maximize the efficiency of the batteries. And now let's look at some of the compartments where you can store all your things. You can charge your phone. You also have 2 cup holders, which can be hidden, and then you can open them up. 나 추워. So what I just did is I used voice recognition and said, I'm cold. And what the car immediately did is it changed the HVAC settings and it increased the temperature to medium, and it raised the heat as well as the seat heater. So you have 3 options of controlling your car. You have the dial, the rotator, as well as the touch functions on the touch panel. And you also have your voice recognition on the left-hand side of your steering wheel. The seats that have been installed on this model are actually the higher trim models. They have a lot of cushion in the middle part of the seat, as well as for lumbar support at the lower end of the seat. So I just turned on the massage function. It's right next to some of the adjust controls, and it started with the bottom part of the seat. So the second row seats are also quite luxurious, and you have the same seats as you had in the first row seats, and they're also very comfortable, as I mentioned in the front. And as for the headroom and legroom, Because of this kind of shape inside, provides you with a little bit more space for the headroom. Quite a lot of room for the legroom as well. One thing though, while you are getting inside, it's quite low hanging. So I kind of bumped my head a couple of times while I was getting inside the car. So for people that are taller, for people that are a bit older, they might think of it as a little bit inconvenient when they keep on bumping their heads while they're getting inside and outside of their car. And because of the solar panels on the roof of the electrified G80, we don't have the windows. One thing I did notice, usually for the EV models, you don't have this center tunnel, but in this model, you do have a slight bump. I mean, it's not that big, but considering that a lot of the other EV models don't have the center tunnel almost at all, this is quite a bump in the middle. You have the center armrest that comes down with multiple control panels here. You also have the seat heating functions on both sides, as well as the volume button, the home button, because you have two displays on the back of front two seats. One thing though, some people might want to take these off and hold it like an iPad, but these aren't detachable. They come with the car and they stay with the cars. So I've been driving the electrified G80 on the road for about an hour now, actually. I was pleasantly surprised because there's no stress. I actually had the pleasure of driving a G80 petrol version when it first came out. It was a very smooth sailing sedan, and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. But for me, it didn't have too much grip. It was not sporty at all. And it was just too much of old man's cars. This one, the electrified one, actually responds with you and is more of a driver's car compared to the first G80. It has a lot of stability, even on the corners, even at higher speeds. It's very stable. It's very responsive. So now we're on the highway. Genesis tends to care more about its interior as well as its materials, and it seems that they have done pretty well on the soundproofing as well, because right now I'm driving at around 100 kilometers per hour, 110 kilometers per hour, and it's still very tolerable. Even when we're driving next to a truck. A lot of the advantages of an EV is that because of the battery layout, because it's stacked on the bottom of the car, it allows you to have a lower center of gravity, which then relates to having more stability at higher speeds when you're on highways or, especially on corners or in a higher speeds. The car definitely has much more stability compared to the car that I drove with the petrol version with G80. Now I have changed the drive mode into sports mode. The car becomes a bit more agile and a stronger push from behind. Of course, you will have to compromise on the mileage. The reason I say that this is definitely more of a driver's car is you get the sportiness, and it's much more fun to drive, even compared to a gasoline version. So guys, what did you think about our review of the Genesis Electrified G80? Well, honestly, I was pleasantly surprised about how it drove on the road because I had experience with the petrol version of the G80. So tell us down below in the comments your reviews, and for me, I will see you next time.